Have you ever heard of a humble young nun who one quiet night saw the radiant face of the Mother of God? One simple sister whose silence changed the world, bringing forth a medal that would spread miracles, conversions, and hope to every corner of the earth. This is the story of Saint Catherine Labouré, the quiet servant chosen by the Virgin Mary to reveal heaven's mercy to mankind. Before beginning, drop an amen in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more stories of the saints. Don't forget to share it so others may discover this story and be inspired to live holier lives. Chapter 1: Childhood and the Awakening of Faith. In the early 19th century, France still trembled from the Revolution, and many churches had been desecrated while convents stood empty. Public life bore the scars of political pride and social upheaval, leaving priests and people to rebuild trust slowly. In this fragile season, the practice of faith was tested, yet the Holy Spirit worked quietly, preparing humble hearts to bring mercy, consolation, and renewed devotion. Indeed, now, a gentle revival of piety began in parishes and in country chapels as humble priests and devout laypeople rekindled the gospel by example. Catechists taught children the prayers of the church once more, and women maintained small home altars where the rosary was recited. Devotion to the Blessed Virgin grew as people turned to Mary as a tender mother seeking solace and guidance amid uncertainty and the long work of spiritual restoration. Into that quiet renewal on May 2nd, 1806 inches, the small village of Fin-les-Moutiers in Burgundy, a child named Zoé Labouré was born. Her family's life was modest, given to hard work on the land, and habitually gathered for prayer. Though unremarked by the wider world, her birth took place in a setting where ordinary toil and humble devotion formed a fertile soil for grace and for God's providential plans. Indeed so. Her father, Pierre Labouré, was a steady farmer who taught honest labor, while her mother, Madeleine Gontard, kept a pious, charitable home. They had little wealth but great spiritual richness. Each evening the family prayed the rosary together and practiced simple acts of charity. These domestic prayers and routine kindnesses shaped Catherine's early sense of faith, teaching her that true holiness often grows quietly within daily family life and humble service daily. Catherine, the ninth of 11 children, learned responsibility through daily chores and care for her siblings. She rose at dawn to feed animals, fetch water, tend a small garden, and work in the fields, offering each small labor to God with a brief prayer. Through such repetitive tasks, her character took shape. Humility, patience, and readiness to serve the neighbor, especially the weak and the poor, became habitual virtues in her life. Oftentimes, she slipped away to the little parish church, drawn by the silence of the tabernacle and the gentle image of the Virgin. There she knelt and whispered simple petitions as to a close friend, sharing small hopes and fears before the altar. Neighbors recalled a calm young girl whose face reflected quiet joy. Her devotion was steady and sincere, like a lamp that burns through common days, guiding a prayerful heart. When public faith wavered, God worked in hidden places, and he chose a simple child as an instrument of mercy. Little Zoé's ordinary upbringing of prayer, labor, and family piety was unseen preparation for a larger mission. The village overlooked her, but heaven had other purposes. In that quiet heart, a seed of grace was planted that would someday blossom into a witness to Mary's compassion and God's faithful love for generations. Chapter 2: The Loss of Her Mother and the Birth of a Vocation. When Catherine was 9 years old, her world changed forever. On the 9th of October 1815, her beloved mother Madeleine passed away after an illness, leaving the large family in grief. The farmhouse grew silent, and the laughter of 11 children turned to tears. For Catherine, her mother had been not only a parent, but her first teacher of prayer, kindness, and faith. That emptiness carved a wound she would carry deeply. At the funeral, little Catherine stood still among the mourners, clutching a small statue of the Virgin Mary that had belonged to her mother. Lifting it to her heart, she whispered through tears, "Now, dear mother, you will be my mother." That simple, childlike act became a covenant of love between her and Mary. It was from this sorrow that a new tenderness began to bloom within her soul. From that day forward, Catherine lived as though under the gaze of the Blessed Mother. She spoke to Mary in her heart, confided her fears, and found comfort in quiet prayer. The thought that heaven watched over her gave her strength. She began to imitate Mary's virtues, gentleness, silence, and service. Even as a child, she carried herself with a calm dignity, as if guided by invisible grace. After her mother's death, Catherine and her older sister Marie Antoinette were sent to live with their aunt in the nearby village of Saint-Rémy. Life there was modest but peaceful. The sisters attended daily mass and learned their catechism from a patient parish priest. Catherine loved listening to the stories of the saints and practiced her faith with simplicity. The rhythms of prayer began shaping her days and her heart. One quiet night in Saint-Rémy, Catherine had a dream that would remain with her for life. In it, she saw a gentle priest standing before her, radiant yet humble. He looked at her with paternal affection and said, "My daughter, God has plans for you. Do not forget it." The dream filled her with both wonder and peace. She awoke certain that heaven had spoken. Years later, Catherine would recognize the man in her dream. His image matched that of Saint Vincent de Paul, the holy founder of the Daughters of Charity. The realization amazed her. The very saint who had devoted his life to the poor had visited her in a vision. She kept this secret close to her heart, certain it was a sign of her future calling to serve God through love of the suffering. That mysterious dream sealed her sense of destiny. Though still a young girl, Catherine felt a quiet certainty that her life belonged to something greater than herself. The sorrow of losing her mother had become the doorway to divine intimacy. From her tears, faith had taken root. Within her heart, a vocation had begun to grow, one that would later blossom in service to the poor and in obedience to heaven's call. Chapter 3. Trials and the Journey Toward Vocation. As Catherine grew older, her desire to dedicate her life to God deepened into a quiet but unshakable conviction. She confided her longing to her father, explaining her wish to join the Daughters of Charity. But Pierre Labouré, a man of reason and practicality, reacted sharply. He could not bear the thought of losing another woman in the family to religious life, and strongly opposed her holy ambition, hoping it might fade with time. To cool her foolish dreams, he sent her to Paris, arranging work in a small restaurant owned by relatives. The bustling city was a far cry from the peace of Burgundy. The endless noise, smoke, and exhaustion of daily labor weighed heavily on her. Her father's hope was that the distractions of worldly life would dim her desire for the convent, yet paradoxically the hardship only clarified her resolve to serve God. Among the workers, Catherine saw suffering everywhere, faces worn with poverty, bodies broken by toil, and hearts hardened by hunger. She recognized in them the wounded face of Christ. Though she had few comforts herself, she often shared her bread or spoke gentle words to those around her. Each act of compassion became for her a silent prayer, a small offering to the Lord she longed to serve completely. Amid the city's clamor, Catherine never abandoned her spiritual life. Each morning before work, she slipped quietly into a nearby church, kneeling before the tabernacle in silence. There she found rest for her soul and strength for the day ahead. In that stillness, she felt close to Mary, her heavenly mother, who seemed to whisper courage into her heart. Prayer became her breath and faith, her steady companion. In her solitude, Catherine made a secret promise to the Virgin. She would belong to no one but God and would dedicate herself to caring for his poor and suffering children. This inner vow sustained her through loneliness and misunderstanding. It was not a promise of words, but of the heart, a covenant sealed in the hidden silence of faith. She trusted that one day Mary herself would open the path to her vocation. After years of patient endurance, the door of grace finally opened. With the help of her elder sister Marie Antoinette, who had entered religious life before her, Catherine's father relented. Perhaps he sensed the quiet strength of her conviction and could resist no longer. With newfound freedom, Catherine prepared to leave the world behind, her heart filled with gratitude and humble joy at the call she had never abandoned. On the 21st of April 1830, Catherine Labouré arrived at the mother house of the Daughters of Charity on Rue du Bac in Paris. The gates closed gently behind her, marking the end of one life and the beginning of another. In that sacred place, far from the noise of the world, she entered the path God had prepared for her, a journey of prayer, service, and the extraordinary mission that heaven was soon to reveal. Chapter 4. Formation and the Signs of Heaven. During her time in the novitiate, Catherine embraced her full religious name, Sister Catherine Labouré, as a sign of her total consecration to the Blessed Virgin Mary. The new name marked the beginning of a new life. She no longer belonged to herself, but to God alone. Each day she sought to live her vows in silence, humility, and love, finding holiness not in great deeds, but in small, faithful acts of service. Her life in the convent was quiet and disciplined. She performed the simplest duties, cleaning, tending the sick, helping in the kitchen with the gentleness of someone who saw Christ in every task. The other sisters noticed her serenity and her smile, though she rarely spoke. She was content to remain unnoticed, believing that a hidden life offered entirely to God was the most perfect form of praise. Two sources of light sustained her, the Holy Eucharist and the Blessed Mother. Before dawn, Catherine would slip into the chapel to pray before the tabernacle, gazing upon the host with tender reverence. To her, the Eucharist was the living heart of Jesus, silently radiating love. Her devotion to Mary deepened as she consecrated every joy and trial to her, finding in the Virgin's purity and courage a model for her own soul. In April of 1830, a solemn celebration took place in Paris. The relics of Saint Vincent de Paul, founder of the Daughters of Charity, were carried in procession to their resting place. The entire Vincentian family rejoiced, and the sisters at Rue du Bac prayed fervently for his blessing. It was during this holy period that Catherine began to experience something mysterious, visions that only heaven could send. She saw above the reliquary of Saint Vincent the image of his heart appearing 3 times each in a different color. The first time it shone white like light through crystal symbol of peace and purity that would fill the Vincentian communities. The second time the heart glowed red, burning with charity and zeal. The third time it appeared black, darkened by future suffering and trials awaiting France and the Church. Catherine confided these visions to her spiritual director, who listened attentively but urged her to forget them. "Keep your heart calm, my child," he advised, "and do not let imagination trouble you." Catherine obeyed, yet deep within she sensed that these visions carried divine meaning. They were not illusions but gentle warnings from heaven, a quiet preparation for a mission she could not yet comprehend. The months that followed were filled with deeper silence and prayer. Catherine lived her vocation with childlike trust, offering her heart to Jesus through Mary each day. Her humility became her strength, her obedience her refuge. Without realizing it, she was being shaped for a heavenly encounter that would soon change not only her life, but the lives of countless souls who would one day wear the Medal of Grace. Chapter 5. The Night of the First Vision. On the night of July 18th, 1830, the convent at Rue du Bac lay silent beneath the soft breath of summer. Catherine had just fallen asleep when she was suddenly awakened by the voice of a child calling her name. A small boy, radiant and gentle, stood by her bed. "Sister Labouré," he whispered, "come to the chapel. The Blessed Virgin is waiting for you." The light surrounding him dispelled all fear from her heart. Catherine followed the child through the dim corridors of the convent. Every door she passed seemed to open on its own, and the hallway glowed faintly as if touched by heaven. When she entered the chapel, all the candles were lit, though no one else was there. Then, in the quiet air, a soft rustle of silk announced the presence of Our Lady, seated on the chair of the director of novices. The Virgin appeared bathed in a light more delicate than dawn. Her robe shimmered like pure white satin, and her face radiated kindness and maternal love. Catherine hesitated for a moment, overwhelmed, but the child said gently, "Here is the Blessed Virgin." At that, she knelt before Mary, her heart trembling yet filled with peace. The Queen of Heaven smiled and beckoned her closer as a mother welcomes her beloved child. Mary spoke tenderly, "My daughter, God wishes to entrust you with a mission. The times are evil. Troubles will come upon France and the Church. But do not be afraid. You will have grace enough to do what is required. Come to the foot of this altar. Here graces will be poured upon all who ask for them with confidence." Her words entered Catherine's heart like a flame that neither burned nor frightened. For nearly 2 hours, Catherine remained kneeling beside the Blessed Virgin, resting her hands upon Mary's knees as they conversed. The Mother of God shared with her many things, prophecies, warnings, and promises of mercy. She urged Catherine to pray for France and for the priests who would face trials. "The world will suffer," Mary said, "but those who come to me will find protection and strength." As the conversation ended, the Virgin's light began to fade. Catherine longed to remain forever in that peace, yet she knew the vision was ending. A soft fragrance like spring flowers filled the chapel. When she rose, the candles still glowed, though no sound disturbed the silence. She returned to her bed, her heart overflowing with awe, her soul resting in a stillness not of this earth. That night marked the turning point of her life. The encounter was no dream, but a divine visitation, the beginning of a mission hidden in God's plan. Catherine would never forget the voice, the light, or the words of Mary's promise. From that moment on, she lived with one certainty: the Blessed Mother had come to prepare her for something wondrous, the unfolding of heaven's mercy through a humble daughter of faith. Chapter 6. The Vision of the Miraculous Medal. On the evening of November 27, 1830, the convent chapel at Rue du Bac was dimly lit for night prayers. Catherine knelt among the sisters, her heart recollected in deep silence. As she prayed, she suddenly heard the soft rustle of a silk garment, the same sound that had filled the air during her first encounter. Lifting her eyes, she beheld the Blessed Virgin once more radiant in heavenly light. Mary stood upon a globe, her feet resting on a serpent crushed beneath her heel. Her robe shimmered with purity, and from her open hands poured brilliant rays of light that spread in every direction. Catherine watched in awe as the rays illuminated the earth, symbolizing graces showered upon all who asked for them. The beauty of the vision was beyond words. Heaven seemed to have descended into the chapel. Around the Virgin, in a glorious oval frame of light, appeared golden letters forming a prayer. "O Mary, conceived without sin, pray for us who have recourse to thee." The words encircled her image like a crown of praise. They proclaimed her as the Immaculate One, filled with grace from the first moment of her existence, a truth not yet defined by the Church, but already alive in the hearts of the faithful. Then the vision changed before Catherine's eyes. The shining oval frame seemed to turn, revealing the reverse side. There, she saw the letter M, surmounted by a cross, interwoven as one symbol. Beneath it were two hearts, the Sacred Heart of Jesus crowned with thorns, and the Immaculate Heart of Mary pierced by a sword. Around them shone 12 stars, sign of the Church, and of the 12 apostles guarding her in glory. Catherine's gaze was fixed upon the rays of light streaming from Mary's hands. Some reached the earth while others stopped midway, fading into shadow. Why are some rays without light, she wondered. The Virgin looked upon her with tenderness and replied, "These are the graces for which people forget to ask." Her words sank deep into Catherine's soul, awakening a longing to help the world remember heaven's gifts. Then Mary spoke again. "Have a medal struck after this model. Those who wear it with confidence will receive abundant graces. The rays symbolize the blessings I pour upon those who ask for them." The Mother of God's voice carried both sweetness and command. Catherine felt unworthy, yet her heart burned with the certainty that this mission came directly from heaven's mercy and love. A month later, in December 1830, the Blessed Virgin appeared one final time. In this vision, Catherine saw a golden chalice and a radiant host shining like the sun. Mary revealed that every grace flows from the altar, from the sacrifice of her Son present in the Eucharist. Then, with a gentle smile, she faded into light. The chapel returned to silence, but Catherine's soul remained forever changed, entrusted with a mission that would touch the entire world. Chapter 7. The Miraculous Medal spreads across the world. After the heavenly visions, Catherine confided everything to her spiritual director, Father Jean-Marie Aladel, a wise and cautious Vincentian priest. He listened with deep attention, yet remained prudent. For 2 long years he prayed, questioned, and observed Catherine's conduct. Her humility, obedience, and serenity convinced him that her experiences were not illusions, but the fruit of divine grace. Finally, he recognized that heaven was indeed calling for action through this humble daughter of charity. In 1832, with the approval of the Archbishop of Paris, permission was granted to have the medal struck according to Catherine's description. The design was entrusted to Adrien Vachette, a skilled French goldsmith. Every detail followed what Catherine had seen. Mary standing upon the globe, rays flowing from her hands, and the holy inscription surrounding her. On the reverse, the intertwined M cross and the 2 sacred hearts testified to the mystery of love and redemption. That same year, a terrible cholera epidemic swept through Paris, claiming tens of thousands of lives. Amid fear and despair, the Sisters of Charity distributed the newly minted medals to the sick and the dying. People began to experience unexpected recoveries, deep peace, and sudden conversions. Word spread quickly through the city streets. Those who wore the medal received graces beyond explanation. The faithful saw in it a sign of Mary's motherly protection. Soon, devotion to the medal spread beyond France's borders. Soldiers, merchants, and missionaries carried it across Europe and into distant lands. Wherever it reached, stories of healing and hope multiplied. It was the people, not theologians, who first gave it its name, the Miraculous Medal. Through it, the Virgin Mary had extended her hand to a suffering world, reminding humanity that faith, prayer, and trust still open the floodgates of divine mercy. Years later, Pope Pius IX would affirm the significance of this devotion. He declared that the Miraculous Medal had prepared the hearts of the faithful for one of the greatest dogmas in Marian history, the Immaculate Conception, solemnly proclaimed in 1854. The words engraved on the medal, "O Mary conceived without sin," had already taught the people what the Church would later define as truth, proving that God often speaks first through humble souls. Through all these events, Catherine remained hidden. The world spoke of miracles, but she spoke of none. Not even the sisters who lived beside her knew that she was the chosen witness of the Virgin. Her silence was complete, her anonymity perfect. She preferred that the glory go to Mary alone, and so she continued her life of quiet service, known only as a gentle, prayerful sister devoted to the poor. Eventually, Catherine was sent to the Enghien hospice in Rowley on the outskirts of Paris. There, she spent over 40 years caring for the elderly and infirm, feeding them, cleaning their rooms, and praying by their bedsides. She never sought recognition, content to serve the hidden Christ in every suffering face. The world was being transformed by the Miraculous Medal, but its humble messenger chose to disappear into the silence of love. Chapter 8. Her Final Years and Holy Death. At the hospice in Rowley, Sister Catherine lived a life hidden from the world yet radiant with grace. She spent her days caring for the elderly, washing and dressing them, tending the garden, feeding the chickens and scrubbing floors. Her hands were rough from labor yet gentle in every touch. When she was not working, she was praying rosary beads, quietly slipping through her fingers as her heart rested in the presence of God. Everyone who knew her spoke of her gentleness and patience. The residents loved her for her kindness. Her fellow sisters admired her silence and charity. Though her body aged, her spirit remained young with faith. She never complained of fatigue or discomfort. Her peace seemed to flow from another world. In every smile, every act of service, she reflected the mercy of Christ and the tenderness of his mother. As the years passed, Catherine's strength slowly faded. Age and work had taken their toll, but her heart was serene. She sensed that her time on earth was drawing to an end and asked her superiors for permission to receive the last sacraments. With calm joy, she made her confession, received Holy Communion, and was anointed with holy oil. "Now I am ready," she whispered, her eyes shining with quiet gratitude to the God she had served so faithfully. In the final days of December 1876, Catherine revealed to her Mother Superior the secret she had carried for 46 years. In a humble voice she said, "My mother, it was I who saw the Blessed Virgin in the chapel at Rue du Bac." The Superior was deeply moved, but not surprised. The holiness of Catherine's life had long been its own testimony. Having unburdened her heart, Catherine asked to return to her duties one last time. On the evening of the 31st of December, 1876, peace descended upon her small room. Sister Catherine lay in bed, her rosary between her fingers, praying softly. As midnight approached, she breathed her final prayer to Mary. Her lips formed a gentle smile, her hands folded as though still in prayer. She died without struggle, her face calm and luminous. The sisters who kept vigil felt that heaven itself had entered their midst. Years later, when the Church began her cause for canonization, Catherine's tomb was opened. To everyone's astonishment, her body was found incorrupt, her features untouched by time. Her hands were supple, her face serene, and a delicate fragrance filled the air. Doctors and witnesses confirmed the miracle. The same peace that had marked her life seemed to rest eternally upon her body, a sign of God's favor and Mary's protection. Catherine Labouré holy death ended a life of silence, but began a legacy of light. She had sought no recognition, no earthly reward. Yet through her humility and obedience, God made her a beacon of grace for the world. The hidden sister of Rowley had fulfilled her mission. In dying quietly, she opened a path of hope for all who serve with love, reminding the world that holiness often blooms in secret. Chapter 9. Canonization and Sacred Legacy. The news of Catherine's incorrupt body spread rapidly across France, stirring hearts with awe and devotion. Pilgrims flocked to Rowley and later to the chapel at Rue du Bac, drawn by the quiet miracle that confirmed her holiness. Thousands came to kneel and pray beside her glass coffin, their petitions whispered in faith. The atmosphere was one of reverent wonder, as if heaven had chosen to keep her beauty as a visible sign of grace. Reports of favors and miracles began to multiply. The sick found healing, the sorrowful found peace, and many souls far from faith were led back to the Church, These blessings were attributed to Catherine's intercession, a humble continuation of her earthly mission. The same gentleness that once touched the poor in life now consoled countless hearts in death. Her name became a silent prayer on the lips of the faithful. In 1933, the Church officially recognized her heroic virtue. Pope Pius XI proclaimed Catherine Labouré blessed, honoring her as a model of hidden sanctity. 14 years later, in 1947, Pope Pius XII raised her to the altars of the Universal Church, declaring her a saint. The ceremonies were simple yet radiant, echoing her own life, quiet, humble, and luminous with love. Her story was now inseparable from the message of Mary's mercy. Today, the incorrupt body of Saint Catherine Labouré rests in the chapel of Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal on Rue du Bac in Paris, the very place where the Virgin had appeared to her. Pilgrims from around the world still come to kneel there, lighting candles and entrusting their burdens to the Mother of God. The silence of the chapel is filled with peace, the same peace Catherine once carried in her heart. The Miraculous Medal continued its journey across nations and generations. Millions wear it as a sign of protection, faith, and hope. It has become one of the most beloved sacramentals in the Catholic Church, a tangible expression of trust in the intercession of the Blessed Virgin. Through it, Mary continues to draw souls toward her Son, and Catherine's obedience continues to bear fruit in every corner of the world. Saint Catherine Labouré is honored as the patroness of the elderly and of those who serve the sick and suffering. Her life reminds nurses, caregivers, and hidden workers that holiness is not found in recognition, but in love quietly given. Every act of service, when done for Christ, becomes a seed of eternal joy. Her example continues to inspire hearts to live the gospel with humility and compassion. Her legacy endures as a living testimony that God performs His greatest wonders through simple and hidden souls. In silence and humility, she allowed divine grace to flow freely through her hands and heart, becoming a gentle instrument of heaven's mercy. From the quiet chapel of Rue du Bac, her light continues to shine, reminding the world that true greatness is born from trust, obedience, and unwavering faith in God's love. Chapter 10. A Prayer to Saint Catherine Labouré. O Saint Catherine Labouré, gentle messenger of the Virgin of Grace, you who were chosen in humility to behold the beauty of the Mother of God, teach us to listen for the voice of heaven amid the noise of the world. Help us to recognize the quiet presence of God in our daily lives and to follow His call with courage, peace, and a heart filled with love. Saint Catherine, you heard Mary's tender words and obeyed them with unwavering trust. Teach us to do the same. When the world grows restless and distracted, help us to hear the soft whisper of Christ speaking in our hearts. Grant us the grace to be still before Him, to pray sincerely, and to walk in faith even when the path is hidden from our eyes. Through your intercession, obtain for us a strong and steadfast faith. Inspire in us a childlike trust in the Blessed Virgin Mary, who is full of grace and mercy. May we never doubt her maternal care. As you once placed all your hopes in her hands, help us to do likewise, to entrust our joys, our fears, and our sufferings to the loving heart of our Heavenly Mother. Teach us, dear Saint, the beauty of simplicity and the holiness of hidden service. Help us to love our daily duties, however small, and to perform them with quiet joy. Remind us that the greatest acts of love often pass unnoticed, and that God delights in humble hearts. May your life of silence and compassion inspire us to serve others without seeking recognition. We ask you to obtain for us the graces promised by Our Lady through the Miraculous Medal. May this sign of her protection strengthen our faith, heal our wounds, and draw us closer to her Son, Jesus Christ. Through your prayers, may countless hearts rediscover the mercy of God, the joy of forgiveness, and the hope that shines even in the darkest night. Look kindly upon our world, Saint Catherine. Pray for peace where there is conflict, for comfort where there is pain, and for conversion where there is indifference. May those who suffer find solace, and may those who have strayed return to the embrace of divine love. Let your gentle intercession renew the earth with compassion and faith. O Saint Catherine Labouré, faithful daughter of Mary and servant of the poor, pray for us. Help us to live in grace, to serve with humility, and to persevere in love until we reach the glory of heaven. May your example and prayers guide us always toward Christ, through the heart of his Blessed Mother. Amen.